Okay, this is the general induction training. Um, it's going to provide an overview of the induction process and insight to a few specific topics such as health and safety, annual leave, the rota, etc. So your induction training is going to consist of face-to-face training in moving and positioning and falls prevention. It's also going to consist of face-to-face training in first aid and infection control. The rest of the induction training is going to include these online videos, so this being one of them, and that will provide general information on various topics including pressure sore prevention and incontinence care, for example. Staff will also have 2 weeks of supernumerary shifts with following a senior member of the care assistant team. You also need to complete online training for the care certificate and for the remaining mandatory training. So that's quite a lot to do for induction training, but it has to be quite comprehensive. So health and safety, you will have specific online health and safety training. We have to consider health and safety at all times in any workplace due to the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. This can be everything from ensuring that people are not tripping over cables, wet floors, that there's no sharp objects about where people could cut themselves, etc., etc. And then also, because we're a care home, we also have to ensure the health and safety of residents due to the Care Act 2008. So these two pieces of legislation dictate health and safety in the care home, and you will have further training on health and safety topics. COSH, this should be part of your online health and safety training. This means control of substances hazardous to health. For example, things like the cleaning fluids, things like the detergents, etc. There's certain procedures how you handle them. That should be part of your online health and safety and COSH training. Incident accident reporting. All incidents and accidents must be reported appropriately. Ask a senior member of staff how to perform this. Fire prevention. Smoking is only allowed in the smokers area and not allowed anywhere else, so ask other staff where this area is. No naked flames are permissible in the home except the kitchen appliances. All maintenance issues must be reported as soon as possible. Okay, you also have face-to-face training with fire prevention actions on fire. Just before you have your main training on fire, responding to fire, just to give you a little oversight. So if you hear the fire alarm, you're immediately to walk to the fire alarm assembly point. If a fire has been witnessed, then the nurse should be informed and they should immediately call the fire and rescue service on 999. Just to note that in the care home you have to dial 19 to get an outside line. So in fact be 4 nines. Okay. It will tend to be the registered nurse who will do this, but it may be another member of staff. If you call the fire brigade, then you need to know the telephone number, the address, and you need to clearly state to them that it's a nursing home or care home. Okay, it's very important because that affects the number of firefighters, etc., that they send. This is done for all size fires, so always call 999 first. If no member of staff has witnessed a fire at the fire assembly point, then at least 2 staff working together should go around the entire building looking for signs of a fire, or the triggering smoke detector or break glass point. And they must, if they do find a faulty alarm or a broken break glass point, then they immediately need to report back their findings to the nurse in charge at the fire alarm panel. Though if a fire has been seen, then the fire and rescue service will need to be told, will need to be called, as I just said. And we do need to, when you it's very important you tell them it's a care home with up to 50 residents. So once we've called the fire and rescue service, the next thing we need to do is, if it's reasonable, we can tackle the fire using the appropriate firefighting equipment. For example, a water fire extinguisher if it's a wood fire, for example. At the same time, residents near to the fire should be evacuated to behind 2 corridor fire doors. So this will also be talked about in the moving and positioning training, which will be face to face. Once this is done, all staff should then evacuate to the external fire assembly point. Ensure that the fire plans are retrieved and the front door is left open. So that's just some information on immediate actions on fire before you get your full training. Everything you hear inside the care home is confidential. There's patient confidentiality that is absolutely 100% strict. You cannot be talking to any non-staff member regarding medical information or residents, anything to do with the residents' care. You should not even be talking to another member of staff in a public place where people can overhear the information. So you should not be discussing anything that happens with the residents at home or with any third party, and you shouldn't even be talking with other staff outside the nursing home. This is very serious. For example, a registered nurse could lose their registration if they've breached patient confidentiality. Also, from the company's point of view, you shouldn't be divulging our policies, procedures, etc. You probably won't initially be answering the telephone, but if you answer the telephone, you have to be very careful what information you give out. You should give out the bare minimum of information, if any at all. Do not give out the names of the staff members, like the manager, the name of the maintenance staff, etc., to someone you don't know if they should have that information. And you should only give information over the telephone if you know the caller, if you know their voice, and you know that they should be having that information. So it's very strict from a medical point of view. And also we do have the GDPR, so you would have specific online training regarding that, but that is also relevant. The rota should be produced a week in advance in accordance with the off-duty policy 2014, and you should make yourself, you should read that and you should understand that, because it will be made using that policy. Just a note that employees have no right to ask when they work. It's basically within the business needs when staff need to work. Okay. There is a request sheet, so you can make requests in advance of what duty you want. You can ask other staff members how to do this, but make sure you read that off-duty policy, because it will tell you how to request duty and how it's going to be allocated fairly. Annual leave. So annual leave is requested and allocated also in accordance with another policy called the Staff Annual Leave Policy 2015. Again, you need to read this. It's quite in depth. It will state things like, obviously these are lawful, these policies, where there is no statutory requirement to follow any legislation, then it's always the business need is what leads the the policy wording. It says a lot of things. It tells you how many days annual leave you're allowed each year. It tells you when you can request it, how many weeks you can have at a time. It also states such things as you can only be paid annual leave when you leave the employment. You can never be paid instead of taking time off. So it covers all of these sort of things. Sickness. So staff must inform us of their inability to attend their allocated duty as soon as possible. They must inform the care home of their intended return to work date and keep the care home up to date with their ability to return to work. Staff can self-certificate for 7 days. If they are off from work due to sickness or for longer than 7 days, then they must provide the care home with a doctor's sick or fit note. Staff should also understand that the care home has a following policy in place. So policy for repeated short-term sickness absences, 2011. So you should also make yourself familiar with that policy. Discipline. So staff must behave in an appropriate manner whilst at work. Any potential disciplinary incident will be appropriately investigated and passed to an appropriate manager for potential instigation of disciplinary procedures. All investigation of disciplinary procedures will be conducted in accordance with UK employment law and best practice guidelines. Whistleblowing. So whistleblowing is where a staff member raises a concern regarding a wrongdoing or safety issue. Concerns could include safeguarding of service users, unsafe work practices, discrimination from other staff members, or instances of fraud amongst other issues. Whistleblowers' identities will be protected, as will their jobs. Staff should whistleblow to the management. If the concern is to do with the management, then the concern should be raised with the proprietor or with the local social services or care quality commission. Aggression or violence towards staff. There is a risk from some residents of risk of violence. We have a policy dealing with aggressive behaviour and de-escalation techniques policy, and you should familiarise yourself with that. There is online training also, and there will also be information for dealing with specific service user in their care plan, and this will be any issues going to be discussed at the daily morning handover. So you need to you do need to read these policies straight away. So the health and safety or COSH policy, the confidentiality or GDPR, and aggression and violence policy. They all need to be immediately read after this watching this DVD. Sorry, watching this video.